looking back to those years, I was just surviving. I
Hmm.
wasn't living a life.
Yeah.
And and that's horrible, and there's probably hundreds of thousands of people in the world who are just surviving.
This is my intention with this, it's just to be able to have conversations with people that, like yourself, have had, I don't know, some sort of a life story, that they have overcome in one way or another. So, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to hearing your story.
Thank you. Who would ever thought anyone would want to know my story?
I'm sure everybody does. You know why? Because I figured lately, in my life at least, if I see anybody else achieving or striving or going through something really hard and coming
Yeah.
out the other end brighter, let's say,
Yeah.
there's something in there, and there's medicine to be shared to the world in
I
this.
love that medicine. I
Yeah.
really like what you've just said then. And you are so right. Society often tells us that we shouldn't share our, the bad bits in life, etc. And it happens. Life just
Mhm.
throws us curveballs, and we either keep going or it wins, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
And
there's a difference, I believe, between telling the story as a victim or telling the story as a victor. When
absolutely, yeah,
you've been through it and you've got the wisdom, rather than
yeah,
keep repeating the same story just for, I don't know, people's, what's the word? You just
Ru-
want people to feel sorry for you for their pity or for whatever.
yeah,
I think there's
yeah.
a difference.
Absolutely. So I've just set up, I'm very new in business.
Okay.
And one of the first things that I was told, which really panicked me, was you've got to be your true, authentic self. And I
Mm,
was thinking, oh my God, um, because I hadn't shared my true, authentic self.
yeah.
And and there came a point where I just thought, look, you really need to just bite the bullet and just get on with it and be open and honest. And if people don't like me for it, then that's on them. That's theirs. It's
Mhm.
it's not gonna. It might affect me, but I can't do anything about it.
For sure. So, would you like to share your story then? Because
I'd love
I'm
to.
curious. This is what I
So
like about this, by the way, before I don't want to keep interrupting you. Uh, I don't want to know much about the person that I'm interviewing because I like it to be fresh and new for me too, and I love to learn new things and to
yeah,
explore different avenues. So the fact that I don't know anything about you is kind of exciting.
brilliant. Yeah, and it is good because that's it. You're learning it as it
Yeah,
goes along.
yeah.
So my childhood ambition was to always be a police officer. From being tiny, it's all I ever wanted to do. I used to get excited when I saw the police, etc. And so I was really, really lucky and fortunate that when I was 20, I'd had a really bad day at work, in where I worked before I joined the police. And I had got my police application form in my wardrobe. And because I was a very shy young girl, I kept telling myself, I can't do this. I'm never going to be able to do it. It's really, really what I want, but I'm never going to do it. So I'd put that application form in my wardrobe. I had a really bad day at work. I went home, I fished it out and filled it in. 9 months later, I was joining the police at only 20. So, and I've got a 22-year-old son now, and I look and think when he was 20 and think, oh my God, no wonder my mum was like crying all the time because she was so worried about me. Um, so I was in the police in Blackpool, which is north of England,
Mhm.
a very, very busy seaside holiday resort, um, lots of pubs and clubs, etc., etc. And so I was in the police for just short of 21 years. And towards the end of my policing career, I woke up one day with really bad pins and needles in my arm and in my fingers. And I went to the health centre, they gave me some tablets, and it just wouldn't go away. And then one morning I woke up and thought, that it's better. But then I had the most intense pain in my back. And so for the next, 5 or 6 years, I had a chronic back pain for literally 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
It was incredibly painful. Imagine having toothache and then just putting that in your back for constant. There was just nothing. It just really wrecked everything. I couldn't do anything. So agony. And so I was taking medication for that really didn't even touch the sides. And at the same time, I had a condition called restless legs.
Mm.
So, and it was unbearable at times. I just couldn't keep still, particularly at night time. And the doctor put me on a certain medication, and I'm not going to name it, but they put me on a certain medication. Now, I didn't realise, but the side effects of that medication were going to completely ruin my life for the next 5 or 6 years. And the serious side effect of that medication was prolific gambling. And
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's really
absolutely,
left field.
wow. And you wouldn't even believe it. When
Yeah,
I read it, I just thought, no, it can't be. Really?
that is so
But
strange. That is
yeah,
one of the strangest things I've ever heard in my life, but continue.
I know. So there was that, and OCD, so obsessive compulsive behaviours. So I really, really struggled with, and I was okay on that medication until a partner at the time, we went to a casino, and we went to a casino for a meal. And then we went, and I think I played roulette. And I thought, and so the medication affected the dopamine levels in my brain.
Mm.
And I'm not quite sure all about that, but basically it meant that whilst I was gambling, I was getting this absolutely intense high, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not quite sure about how it all affects your brain, but I had this horrific gambling addiction. So I then was in the police. I had a gambling addiction, and I was panicking, thinking, if the police find out, then I'm perhaps not necessarily in serious trouble, but they're not going to like it. They're going to have something to say about this. I'm absolutely going to be facing the wrath of somebody. So I became really quite, what's the word? I thought I became very aware of what I was doing. And paranoid's the word, I guess. And I was worried that what if they find out? And I was so desperate to stop, but then so desperate that I was hiding it. And I didn't really realise the intensity of how much it had got me.
Yeah.
And it was only perhaps, so I retired from the police in 2013. I was medically retired because of the back pain. In 2017, I realised I need to go and get some help. So I self-referred to a gambling clinic, who I thought were gonna, and I self-referred to them because it was online. I didn't want to walk into my GP and have this face-to-face chat. I wanted it to be almost anonymous,
Yeah.
but I wanted the help. So I did it online. I had a phone call. So again, I'm not having to do face-to-face. I had a phone call assessment, and then I had a phone call with I think it was a clinical psychologist. And they asked me about what medication I was on. And they said, it's that medication, Claire. It is not your fault. you need to go and speak to your doctor. We will write to your doctor and we will get you, we'll get your help. So we'll write to them, give it a few weeks, and then go and see your doctor. So I did exactly that. And I remember walking to the doctor's surgery thinking, I'm going to get help now. They're going to have the letter. It was all this ideal of, if the birds could have been tweeting around my head that day, they would have been, I would have skipped along sort of thing if it was animation. So I sat and I was waiting for the doctor to call my name, and I was still panicking about it because I was going to have to speak. And I walked in and I'd met this doctor before. I'd always got on all right with him before. And I sat in front of him and I said, you should have had a letter from this gambling clinic. I have a problem and I have a gambling addiction and I would like to be referred to a neurologist, please. And so that we can have a medication review because the medication is causing the gambling addiction. And he literally just looked at me and said, I am the doctor with care, not the gambling clinic, not any psychologist that you may have spoken to. You need to decide what you can deal with the most, either the gambling or the restless legs.
Oh my God.
I know.
What a perfect recipe.
I
Wow.
know. Honestly, Phoenix, I sat, and if my body could have just collapsed like a jelly, that was how I felt.
Mhm.
Like, really?
I mean, I feel like this is a great reflection of the system, medical system in general in the world, where I am in charge of this part. I don't deal with the other part, like with the emotional, with the spiritual, let's say, with the
Yeah.
mental, that it's affecting you in such a deep level to your everyday today life.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I see all of this in another light, but I'm waiting to see I'm waiting to see where this
Yeah.
is going.
So you can absolutely imagine I had done everything to be anonymous. And
Yeah.
now I've taken this huge leap to sit in front of my doctor, who is now going to record that I've come in and said, I've got a gambling addiction.
Mm.
Where my job was, at that time, I was working, so I'd retired from the police. I was working as an aviation security trainer. They would have to do checks on my background, etc. So I was worrying that what if somebody ever needs to check on my GP records and see Claire's got a gambling addiction, because that makes me potentially susceptible to being bribed. And I just thought, oh my God, this man's now going to write it down. So I sat there and I just remember thinking, you have so just judged me. You have judged me, and you are letting me walk out of this surgery worse than when I walked into this surgery, because I now feel that I have absolutely no help.
Mm.
I now feel that you, as my doctor, was the only person I had to turn to. And you have just said, well, you either deal with the gambling or you deal with a medical condition,
Mm.
but one of them you're dealing with it on your own. And as you've just said, the gambling addiction, it was the medication. It was so easy for him to just say, absolutely, I'll refer you. And whilst I'm on it, let's look at this medication. Let's change it for you. He could have done it so easily, but he chose not to. So I went away completely disheartened. And I remember, and I was actually, I'm in a book collaboration, and I've actually written this story in the book collaboration. So I was checking back in my emails only last week and saw that I'd emailed the gambling clinic, and it kind of broke me reading it last week because it was
Mhm.
very, very clear that I was on the edge of looking at life and thinking, I don't know where to go now. I
Mhm.
don't know where to turn, and is life just going to be better for me to just kind of take myself out of it and to not be here? Would everybody be in a better position? And at that time, my dad was very, very poorly. My dad had had cancer. He was chemotherapy had really damaged his lungs, and he was unfortunately dying because of the effects of the chemo. And so I really had to put the gambling out of my head. It was what it was. I had to be there for my mum, my dad, my son. So that got me through the next 6 months, I guess.
Mm.
And in January of 2018, I had surgical surgery on my neck. Because if you remember back to the start where I'd been getting pins and needles in my arm and my fingers, my discs in my neck had vanished.
Mm.
So that was the case of why I was getting the pins and needles in my arms. So I had surgery to replace the discs. And I remember sitting in this hospital bed, and my dad had passed away in the December, and this was January. I was sitting in the hospital bed. I was in Sheffield. I was miles away from my mum. I was miles away from my son, who was at school, and I'd got nobody to visit. And I just remember sitting there thinking, this is life, Claire. This is it. Is this really what you want in life? And I'm so grateful for that moment of having that absolute clarity of, look where you've got, Claire, look what has happened. And yeah, I had done things that I'm not proud of. I had been, in relationships where, because of the OCD, I cheated on people. I'd not been nice, but I didn't intend to do that. If that makes any sort of sense, I didn't do it with any intention to harm anyone. So anyway, I'm lying in the hospital bed thinking, really, is this it? And I thought, you've got to change. You've got to be better than this, Claire, because you are absolutely in the pit of despair. It can't get any worse than this. So I got better, and I made that decision to myself, look, Claire, we've got to change. And I guess at that time as well, something fortunate happened, was that I moved from where I was living.
Mm.
And I didn't even think about it at the time, but it meant that I had to go and be registered with a new doctor, which is almost like, and I'm not a religious person at all, but almost like some divine intervention was looking down on me, like my dad was looking down and going, oh, I'm helping, Claire, I'm helping, I'm changing things for you. So the doctor's surgery that had been awful to me rang me up, and they were like, you don't live on us anymore. You've got to move. You've got to change. And it was the best thing they ever did. So I changed doctors and had to go for a medical review. And so I went in again, having these nervous palpitations, thinking, this didn't go well last time you spoke to a doctor, Claire. So I was already preparing for, we're going to get nowhere now. And I went in, and it was a female doctor who gave me the biggest grin when I walked in, which was almost a bonus. And I sat and I talked to her, and I said, I have a gambling addiction, and I would really like to be taken off the dopamine medication, because that is affecting me. Can we please go on? And so I'd done a bit of research, so I knew there was medication that they could give me. Can we please go on a medication that doesn't have dopamine agonist in it, so it's not going to affect my brain as much? And she was lovely, and she was just like, yeah, come on, let's, we can't be having that kind of thing. And opened up the book, was looking at all these different things, changed my medication there and then. There was no judgment. There was no, well, I've got to think about it, and it was just, yes, let's do it. And I remember walking out of there thinking, at last, something good is going to happen. And so, with the determination that I had of, I've got to get better, I've got to stop this. My son was leaving school, so he was coming back to live with me because he'd had something else had happened, and I was working in Nigeria for 4 months on a contract. Um, so my son had gone and lived with my parents, and because of his schooling, then he was just about to finish his exams. It meant that I didn't want to interrupt that time. So he had gone and lived with my parents for the last 18 months of his schooling. So again, there was the more trauma there. So anyway, my son was coming back to live with me, and I thought, I've got to get better for him. I can't let him down any more than I have. You've got to be the strong mum now. So, prescription in hand, spirit in my head, I went away. My son came to live with me, and we didn't have much. Everything I got was literally secondhand from the charity shop. I bought us a sofa that was 60 quid. We didn't have much, but I had my son. I had my son back at home, and I had this absolute determination to make things right, to give him what I hadn't given him. And the shame and the guilt that I still carry now is quite a burden. But I know that by talking about it, as I am doing, I'm hoping that that makes it a little bit easier. It's never going to go away. It's happened. But I can talk to people, and that's how we started this podcast today. I can talk to people and say, do you know what? Look at my background. I was in the police. I was an honest and trustworthy person. I have always been an honest and trustworthy person, but I guess, a lesser degree than when I was in the police, because I was hiding something.
Mm.
I was hiding the shame of a gambling addiction. And that was awful. So it happens. It can happen to anybody. And I think if we can talk about what is happening in our lives, it makes people, it can help people. It can be a medicine for other people.
I totally see it as that, because it's a burden, like you said. You carry it and it goes round in your head
Yeah,
over and over again. And as soon as you speak it out, even though the shame and the guilt and embarrassment are there, it just makes it lighter. I don't know how that works, but I know it works,
yeah,
because every time it unloads the weight of it. And I love how you said that you made a decision to change. And I feel like this is a theme for a lot of people in the
mm,
world. They get to a point where they realize that life cannot go like this anymore,
yeah,
or some bad thing happens in their life, or the people die, relationships break, and something just clicks in their heads. And of course, once you decided to change, the environment changes too. I don't know,
yeah,
again, this is how magic stuff happens, right? So
yeah,
I totally believe in that. Once you decide to change, prepare for war. I mean, these are not my words. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I heard him say it once, and it stuck to my brain so much,
yeah,
because your old environment, the old people in your life are going to keep coming back to try to keep you in
absolutely.
how
Yeah,
they know you and what they know about you. And when you decide no, enough is enough,
yeah,
you're going to do everything in your power to change all that, which sounds like
absolutely.
you've done, and then people show up. You're being
Yeah,
asked to move doctors, it's like, of course, because you're not in the same frequency with the people you had in your life and everything like
yeah.
that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's very true. And it's almost like you're in that mindset of negativity.
Yeah.
So what are you going to attract? Just the negativity. But when you're in that change, your outlook's brighter. So you're seeing the brightness from other people. You're seeing what's around you. So you're going to attract that positivity, the greatness. Um, so, kind of moving along in life, if we look to 2020, I had quite a horrible experience of domestic abuse. Um, real psychological, real emotional abuse that I was facing. And I could feel that I was becoming quite anxious. I could feel when I was around this person, they would gaslight me to make it sound like I was the person who was in the wrong, that I was being awful, that I was making them feel bad, etc. And it ended one day with myself and my son getting in our car without literally our bin bags of belongings and driving to my mum's and saying, I'm really sorry, Mum, but we need to come home. And again, I felt absolutely awful. I felt then I'm at rock bottom. I felt like I had gone back 8 years in time. And a lot of people kind of, I'm quite sure I've got my haters from people who've experienced me in my worst. And a lot of those people will be saying, haha, that's karma for you. And, they might be right. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I faced it. And I think that's a learning again of, right, okay, Claire, we need to pick ourselves up again now. Let's keep moving. Almost like Dory, just keep swimming. And so I made it my job to then get a job. And I had actually tutored unemployed people for a while. And I used to say to them, you need to make it your job to get a job. So make that the job, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, sit and apply for everything. So I did exactly what I told people. I would sit in my mum's spare room and I would be applying for any job that I could find. I'd be applying. Within 2 weeks, I got an interview, and within the month, I'd started a job working for, strangely enough, a domestic abuse charity,
Wow.
but not working with victims, with actually working with perpetrators to get them to change their behaviour. And I loved it. It was almost like this missing jigsaw piece that had been missing since I'd left the police suddenly came, slotted itself in, and made me think, this is where I belong. This is absolutely the work that I should be doing. So a lot of the work, because it was behaviour change, was around NLP. And I wasn't trained in NLP. So I was like, I love this, but I want to know more. So I invested in myself and got trained up. I did my NLP diploma, did my NLP practitioners, and then my NLP coach, and then my MBIT coach. So I got all of this wealth of knowledge, and I would be going into work now knowing even more than what I was initially knowing. So I was giving so much to the clients, and I loved it. And I would have a really good rapport with these men. They would tell me stuff that had gone on in their lives. They would quite often, when I did their assessment, because they were used to people like the police, like social care, like probation, not being interested in them, but me being more interested in the things that they'd done and not the reasons behind what had made them that person.
Yeah, so going at the right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And suddenly they had me ringing them up saying, hi, you're going to come on a behaviour change. So they would, instant reaction would be, rah, down the phone at me. And I just learned to let them rah because nobody had ever listened to that. It was empowering for them.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm not ever taking away from what they have done to the victims, what they had done to the children, who, of course, are victims. I'm not taking that away. But they suddenly had somebody listening to them who then, because I wasn't judging them, because I wasn't pointing the finger of blame, I wasn't taking the blame away from them, but I wasn't saying, yeah, but you still did. Yeah, but you still did. I'd listen and we'd say, why? Why have you done that? And how has that made the victim feel? So suddenly they now had perspectives. They could look at what they were doing and how that was impacting people. And within weeks, I'd literally would go from a lot of the times men who had been aggressive and being horrible to me down the phone, to men who would be sitting really struggling with their emotions and
Mm.
quite often crying because they hadn't even thought about what they were doing.
Mhm.
They just thought that was what they should be doing because they've been put in this man box. Men don't cry. Men are in power. Men do this, men do that. And that's what they thought they should be doing. And now they realise that's not what I should be doing. And they've been given the tools to actually turn themselves around. And that's what they needed. So I was doing that, and I absolutely love behaviour change work. And because I was working for a charity, I couldn't, and I wanted to set up my own business. And I thought, this is what I need to do. But I couldn't do domestic abuse work because I was working for a domestic abuse charity at that time. So, a play on words, I called myself the anger management coach because that's what a lot of people will say. I'm not an abuser because there's a horrible thing that comes along with that word,
Yeah.
but I'm angry. So the anger management coach fits that. But it also means that I can work with people who call themselves angry, but also people who say and acknowledge, yes, I am abusive in the way of domestic abuse.
Mhm.
And so in April, I literally left my job and jumped full time into the anger management coach.
Wow, is that this year?
Yeah, so
Oh,
literally a couple of months. And I'm loving it. I absolutely love it. I do one-to-one coaching with people. I do trainings for corporates, charities, anybody that wants training. I've done workshops in colleges. I'm so passionate about it because it is so impactful. It changes lives. And I think I can say that from my heart because I know that you can change your life. If you want to change your life, you can do it because I know, because I've done it.
exactly. I think that's where your power lies, in the fact that you've actually been through it. And a lot of people don't even realize this, when they go through hardship in their lives, that whatever they go through it literally becomes a tool later on in life in
Yeah,
how to hold everybody else's hand, right?
yeah,
And I love what you described in there when you were saying about people becoming vulnerable, and then not knowing what to do with themselves with the emotions
yeah,
because nobody had listened to them before. And
yeah,
it's so interesting that this keeps coming up. I am literally reading this book called You're Not Listening, and it's such a good book because it literally talks about how we tend to hear in a certain way and to listen in a certain way,
yeah,
just to reply or to whatever. We don't give enough space for people to be able to get to the places where you were describing,
mm,
of there's emotion that's coming up to the surface and I need to let it out and I don't know what to do with it because I've never been shown how to deal with it.
yeah.
And it sounds to me like everything that you've gone through so far has literally prepared you for this.
Yeah, and I do honestly think that's right. And it was awful, and I wouldn't want to go through it again, and I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. But if that's made me the person I am now, and that I can help people by just being true to who I am,
Hmm.
then I'm happy to accept that, and I'm
Hmm.
happy to go forward and help people and show people that when you are in your absolute depths of despair, there are people who will listen, like you said.
Hmm.
There are people who, if you absolutely want to change, will be by your side.
Yeah.
And whilst we can't walk in their shoes, we can walk alongside them.
Oh my God, 100%. 100%.
And that's
Okay.
all I ever wanted, someone to walk alongside me
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I
not
think that's all
judge
we all,
me.
yeah, I think that's all we all ever want. We just want somebody because as children, we're always being taught, especially, I don't know, I think I'm a bit of a younger generation than you. I'm not 100% sure. But same thing. I grew up with being told not to be too loud, be quiet,
Yeah.
all the time. You're not allowed to show emotions or not those words. But of
Yeah,
course, shut up or I'll give you something to cry, stuff like that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard to let that come out whenever it comes up to the surface. But having somebody next to you that validates your emotions, basically, because that's,
Yeah.
it sounds to me like that's what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
just being somebody there to validate whatever comes up to the surface for the people, for the person in front of you. So where was I
It's
going?
also about helping them to understand what's coming up to the
Hmm.
surface.
Hmm.
Because, and I like what you said about the book. Was it when you're going to change, prepare for war?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what happens when you've decided I'm going to change. Then all the people around you are going to change
Yes.
because
Or they're going to fall down, or they're going to
exactly.
fall away. But it's not even the people outside of you. It's because I believe that saying mostly means internally, because besides the fact that you're going to have all the thoughts coming up to you of, well, I'm used to gambling, let's say, right? I'm used to going there every day at this time of day. I'm going to do this. And that's when the war happens of, do I want to keep doing the same thing, or do I
Yeah,
want to do something different? And of course, then it manifests externally too, of people around you, because your environment affects who you are as well. Like you
yeah,
said, you had to move at a certain point because
mm,
of, we all outgrow our environments,
yeah,
hence the moving. And next level, what's the next level, what's the next level? So sorry, I
yeah.
interrupted.
No, no, no. And I think looking back to those years, I was just surviving. I
Hmm.
wasn't living a life,
Yeah.
and that's horrible. And there's probably hundreds of thousands of people in the world who are just surviving,
Yeah.
and that's terrible. And if I can do my bit to help anybody,
Hmm.
you know, deal with the emotions that they're going through, to become more resilient, to communicate better. They don't have to be angry, but sometimes that anger is just hiding. It's a mask for all those other emotions that are behind it. Like, for example, when you're not being listened to, you become frustrated, you become agitated. Why is nobody listening to me? So when the next person comes along who perhaps does want to help, and you just give them, as the chaps were doing to me, an earful, that's your natural reaction because no one's ever listened.
Yeah. I think the fact that you just held your ground, because I believe this is what they're used to when they start showing all that, when they start going into the aggressive part, let's say, they're used to people running away or pulling back. And
Yeah,
you didn't. You held space, you hold strong in your own beliefs and in your
yeah.
own foundation. So that shows them like, oh, okay, that didn't frighten her. It means there's something in here that I can lean into.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like, I guess, when we label people, so quite
Yeah.
often professionals will label and say, he's an aggressive man, is I don't know, you can't work with him. And they label them all these different things. And at one point, I worked for a mental health ambulance service, and I was a driver and a care assistant on the ambulance. And we would go to various different mental health units, hospitals, etc. And when we'd get there, they'd tell us about the patient. And generally, we were going there because the patient was in crisis and they need to be moved from either the hospital or a mental health unit to get more care elsewhere. So they'd tell us about that patient, and quite often it would come with, it took 4 burly men to get him in that room. It's going to need loads of you to get him out. They're really aggressive. They're this, they're that, they're all the other. And I'd go, and there'd generally be 3 of us on this ambulance. And I'd go, and I remember going once with 2 of my colleagues, and one of them patted me on my shoulder, and he said, "Claire, go and do your thing." And and I loved them for that because they were just like, "Oh, Claire will sort it."
They knew.
And so we had this whole thing of, you want to watch your back with that one, they're really dangerous. And I just kind of knocked on the door of their hospital room, and and I was like, "Can I come in and have this little chat?" And the next thing, I'd be very, very wary, so I didn't go in and not listen to what I was told. But for me, it was they were telling me about 10 minutes, 30 minutes that they'd had with that patient. They had judged that patient
Mm.
on the 10 to 30 minutes that they'd had with them. When that patient is having a mental health crisis, they don't perhaps know what is going on. There's now 5 of you jumping on them. We don't know what that patient's been through in their life, what trauma they've been through in life, that you're perhaps now triggering even more, which
Mhm.
is now making them become more violent because they're terrified. So this is this whole whirlwind of now it's a circle of things getting worse and worse and worse, but you've judged them on that time that you've had with them. Now that patient, if they're 25, 30, whatever, has got all of that lifetime behind them, but you've judged them on 10 to 15 minutes that you've been with them. There's a lot more to that person. So I'd go into the room and think, okay, there's all of that they've just told me, but let me make a decision on them. And I would just go in and I'd be kind, I'd be courteous, I'd have empathy, I'd talk to them. I'd be wary because I wouldn't want to kind of put my barriers down and put myself into danger. But then 9 times out of 10, I would then be walking that patient back to the ambulance with my crew behind me, out of the way, but there in case something happened and that patient turned on me.
Mhm.
And that is so much better than having 5 or 6 big burly men carrying that patient out, putting them under even more trauma to get them in the back of an ambulance, when you can just put somebody who can talk to them, can show a bit of empathy, and can then walk them out and sit with them in the back of the ambulance.
I don't know why, but this is making me emotional.
Oh,
Because
Phoenix.
because it's so, like, I had goosebumps just hearing you talk, because it's so important to be able to do that. You know, when there's aggression, and aggression doesn't do anything except
No.
amplify the aggression. So
Yeah.
when you meet fire with water, right, it
Yeah.
calms it down. It stops the flame from amplifying. So I absolutely love that. I love that.
Oh, thank you. And
I
then
absolutely love that.
I love how you've just put that meeting fire with water, because it puts it out, doesn't it?
Yeah,
If you,
yeah.
and exactly, if you meet aggression with aggression, what's going to happen?
Amplify.
It's exactly, you're going to have the war, etc., because that's what you're building.
Mhm,
But if you meet fire with water, you put it out, you dampen it down.
mhm.
You might not put it out completely, it might still be sizzling,
Sure.
but if you keep meeting it with water, eventually it's going to go away.
Absolutely
Um,
love that.
so I love that. I don't know what it is, but I have been able to do that.
Mhm.
I love that, and I hope I continue to be able to do that.
Because you've had it. See, I don't know, because you started off with your adult life, let's say, right? So I don't know what your background as a child is, and how you were raised, and how you grew up, because I believe everything that you've experienced in your adult life has a background of your childhood too. So I totally believe that whatever you're seeing in these people is because you resonate so much with them,
Mm,
because you might have been there, or you might have heard somebody else, or been alongside somebody else that's gone through all these things, and you know how to handle it, you know what to do with it, and the
yeah,
empathy as well. And
and
not judging. I think the non-judgmental part is huge. It's
yeah,
huge, because we all tend to put stickers on everybody's forehead. You're this, you're this, you're this. You go in
absolutely,
this box, you fit in this one. And I know where I'm standing there. So
yeah. And I think you're very right there. I think I don't know what it is. We do judge people, we do, and we do put people in boxes. We like to label everybody because that makes us feel, I don't know,
hey,
safe,
it does.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think because I have been in that part of my life where I was in the gutter, I am now able to look at where people are. And I'm not saying they're in the gutter, but they're in a part of their life where they're in crisis
Hmm.
and they need help. And they might not even know that they need help. But I think sometimes you can just stand by someone's side whilst they figure that out
Mhm.
and have that empathy.
Mhm.
And again, I just put myself in people's shoes and think that could have been me.
Mhm.
I If I see someone begging on the street, I won't give them money, but if there's a shop nearby, I'll go and buy them some food and I'll buy them some drink, because I just think that person, they might just be looking for money for drugs or for alcohol or for whatever, and I'm not going to fuel that addiction, but I will give them something to eat because I know what it's like to be hungry.
Mhm.
So we can all be compassionate, we can all have empathy for people, and
Yeah,
let's put ourselves in those people's shoes
of course.
rather than judge them.
Yeah, I love that. So I wanna ask a little bit about the book because you mentioned your
Hmm.
okay, you tell me about the book. You mentioned something about a chapter in a book, so you're gonna have to.
So yeah, so it's a book collaboration.
Yeah.
It's still being kind of wrapped up, I guess, if that's the right word. So there's approximately 30 of us,
Oh,
and it's the title is Beyond the Ordinary, Navigating the Creative and Neurodiverse Mind. So it's full of ladies like myself who are either creative or who have divergent. I don't even know how you say it. They're a bit spicy. Let's put it that way.
that's much better. Everybody gets
That's
that
an easy way to say it. Um, and and again, it's only recently that I've realised that I've got undiagnosed ADHD
one. Mm.
because of how my brain works or doesn't work and all the rest of it. And I guess in some respects, so I've been trying to work my own brain out, and now I realise why I can't work my brain out. So the book is, we've all got our own chapter, and I guess everyone's bringing their own bits. I don't know what other people are writing about. They're writing their own chapter about something that's either important to them in their life or about their business. And mine is about how I've overcome that addiction,
Mhm.
because, as I said at the start, I started my business and everyone was saying, "You've got to be authentic, Claire. You've got to be authentic." And that for me was the one thing that I thought, people don't know that about me.
Mm.
And I found talking to you so incredibly therapeutic today, Phoenix. Honestly, there's been times when I've been close to tears telling
Oh,
you stuff. So you've got some sort of spiritual ooziness coming from you. So I've loved that.
thank
Um, and so I just think, just telling my story, if it can help somebody, if it can, it's helping me tell my friends, because I've still not told my best friends to their face, or even over the telephone, or even in a text message, that I've had a gambling addiction.
Wow.
My best friends are going to find this out by either reading my book, seeing my posts, or listening to the podcasts,
Wow.
because I've just not told them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do I need to tell them?
I think it's a you thing for sure. It's how you feel into it, you know?
Yeah,
Because at the end of the day, it's the same thing as what do I want to share with the world? How authentic do I want to be? And I get to choose who I open myself up to, right? I feel like it's so strange, but not the fact that I don't know you. I've only met you today, you know?
yeah,
But it's so easy. Sometimes it's much easier to share your stories and insights
absolutely.
with people that you don't know because there is that thing of they cannot judge me, you
Yeah,
know? Because we do
yeah.
have that. We do have that.
And you're probably right there, it probably is a case of those people matter to me
You value their
hugely.
opinion a bit more, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. And I know that my best friends, I'm thinking of two people in particular, they will not care one iota. They will just be, in fact, they'll probably tell me off and say, "Claire, why didn't you just tell us? Why didn't
Yeah,
you reach
because
out?"
people don't people we think we how was the saying? We think we know what they think, but we only think what
Yeah.
we think they might think. So it's It's all
Yeah,
a jumble of threads that we really don't know what other people think. We never do.
absolutely. No. And when we do find out what they think, it's quite often completely different to what we
Yeah.
thought they were thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
It's madness.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, I was going to say something then, and I've forgotten what it was. That's my brain. See.
Yeah, that's probably
Um,
me interrupting as well.
what was it? So yeah, so they will find out. And I actually was talking to an ex-work colleague, and I'd said to him, I don't know if you know, but I've had a gambling addiction. And he went, oh yeah, I read your post that you put on Facebook about that. And I said to him, do you know what? I put that post on, I said, and nobody's reacted. I said, and it's made me panic.
Wow.
um, but I think, I don't know. I don't know what I expected from it, but I
Mhm.
got no reaction. And that's the best reaction, isn't it?
I
How
mean, it's just, if anything, it just shows that people, we are so worried of what people are going to say and
Yeah,
think about us, and they might be like a scroll through, you know?
absolutely.
We put so much energy into it and make it such a big thing that we
Yeah,
think we can't escape, when instead it's like, oh, it's only small. Because everybody else has
absolutely.
their own shit to deal with.
Yeah,
Everybody else has
absolutely
their
that.
own, so they don't care that much. People don't care, which you can look at it in two different ways. Like, oh, people don't care, or oh, people don't care. You know,
Both
it
ways,
doesn't
yeah,
matter. It doesn't matter.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
tell you one thing, and it keeps coming into the back of my head, so it must need to come out.
Yeah.
Um, but so in December of last year, I just got into bed, and my partner was next to me, and I was doom scrolling as you do on whatever book and TikTok and all the rest of it. Everything you shouldn't do before you go to bed, look at your phone. And I got a message from Facebook Messenger from this person who never heard of them. And this person, I don't even know if I should name this person. Dean Payne, there we go, we've said it. I don't know them. But it was quite clearly a spoof. It was quite clearly somebody hiding behind this name. And this person had clearly been looking at my Facebook, because on my Facebook page, I have a thing and it says change. Because that's important. For me, that's important. Behavior change, we can all change. And they sent me a message and they said, have you changed your gambling addiction? And what else did it say? And something about um, infidelity whilst in a relationship. And it instantly brought a smile to my face. And I think that absolutely wasn't what they wanted,
Mm.
because I could see what this person was trying to do. And I thought, firstly, you've hidden behind somebody else's profile. You've made a fake account to try and make me feel bad. So what you've tried to do is call me out on something, and you don't think that I will have ever either done something about my gambling addiction or spoken about it or told anyone. In fact, I've done all of those. And so this message came up. I'm lying in bed next to my partner, who's a police officer, which made me giggle even more, because I thought, here I am being harassed by somebody on the telephone who's trying to call me out on something, who clearly doesn't know anything about me anymore, because my gambling addiction was like finished in 2018. So this message came last year. So we're now 5 years past a gambling addiction, past me messing about in relationships. So you're somebody from my dim and distant past, but you're still stalking me. So I had a little bit of a happy clap thinking, yay, I'm being stalked by someone who's trying to call me out. And I just thought, do you know what? You can't call me out, because I'm owning it. And
You know,
because, yes, I have changed.
yeah.
And I'm proud.
I
I'm
mean,
proud of that.
I love that story, and I also have. I'm gonna say something to you. You might get it, you might not, but it's so big to me. you had a message from your old self.
Hmm.
That's what that was. That was a
Ah,
part, that was a part of you, of your old insecurities and literally your old self that you were before, that presented itself in the form of another person, imaginary person on
yeah,
Facebook,
yeah,
right? That came to poke at you and be like, "Are you sure you changed?" And I believe that by your response to it, or no response at all, but your reaction, what you just said, right? I was like clapping for myself and whatever. By that,
yeah,
it just goes to show the old self didn't have any power on you whatsoever, because you have changed.
absolutely.
I love that so much.
And I love what you've just said, because what they then did was, and it unbothered me so much that I literally looked at it, told my partner, who was like, "What?" My partner knows all about my background, so it's like there's nothing to hide there.
Yeah.
So I put my phone down, and so what I did, I responded and I said, "Lovely to hear from you. Thanks for the message. Yes, I have. Have a great evening." Put the phone down, went downstairs to the toilet because it had unbothered me so much. Went to the toilet, came back upstairs, picked my phone up again, and they'd sent another message, but they deleted it.
Mm.
And then they'd blocked me. And
Oh,
I, again, happy clapped, because I thought, that's bothered you more than it has me.
yeah.
Because and I like now what you're saying. That is my old self
Yeah.
who had come to try and bother me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because they didn't get the reaction they wanted, they've scurried away. I
Because
love
you're
that.
not the same person anymore. So this is what I totally believe in. The universe is gonna show you, God, okay, whatever you want to call it, is gonna keep putting the same things in your life, a bit as, are you sure you've overcome this,
Yeah,
at the beginning you see it clearly, because maybe a few years back, if that person would have messaged you, you'd have been, fuck you, what do you know, blah,
yeah,
blah, blah, you know that would have been your old reaction maybe. But
absolutely.
now,
Yeah,
because you're not the same person and you've overcome it, it's like, I don't care, right? Because it's not who I am anymore, and you know yourself so well that doesn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah, absolutely.
So clap for yourself.
I know. I'm going to have a happy dance after this.
Nice.
I should speak to you more often.
Great. I love this. I mean, I totally loved all of this, to be honest. And I am very grateful for you for being here. I think, to wrap it up a little bit, is there anything else that you would like to share that you feel that needs to be said right now, or something that you're doing? Like, where can people find you, let's say, if they want to work with you?
So, yeah, so people can find me via my website. So that is at www.angermanagementcoach.co.uk. They
Hmm.
can email me at claire@angermanagementcoach.co.uk. I had to think if there was a "the" in there then. And Claire is spelled Clare. There's no
I
I
mean,
in it.
after, whenever we wrap this up, if you can message me all your details and I'll put
I
them in the
will.
description so people can just easily find them in there. That would be
Fab.
great.
Yeah. So yeah, I will do. And I do
Mhm.
one-to-one coaching, I do trainings, workshops, whatever people need, I can pretty much do it.
Brilliant.
Bespoke things to their needs. So
Yes.
yeah.
I,
Thank
w-
you
I
so much, Phoenix. I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you because I've enjoyed it so much, and not just for that, but for what you do. I want to
Oh,
thank you for working on yourself first of all, and for stepping out of your comfort zone and being like, okay, this is me. You were talking about authenticity. This
yeah,
is me. These are my words. This is what
yeah.
I've cleared. This is what I'm still working with, and for the medicine that you put out into the world, because I totally believe that you working with other people really is medicine to the world. So
I love
thank you.
that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm going to skip for the rest of the day, Phoenix.
Brilliant. Do that. And if more people would do that, I think the world would be such a better place, because having fun. We all forget
Yeah,
that we are children at heart. We're still all children. There's a
yeah.
child inside of us that wants to be ecstatic and just play, right?
I
And
honestly
we all
believe
need
that.
we all need a little bit of that. So go skip about.
I'm gonna. I've got a bucket hat somewhere, and it's too big for me, and I keep putting it on, and my partner keeps saying, "I'll go and get it. It's just over there. 1 minute." My partner keeps saying to me, "You look so stupid with that hat on," but that's me. I like to have that fun, so the child's come out.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Yeah, keep it on. Never mind whoever says whatever, right?
My hat, I love it.
Yes, I love it too. And thank you again for being such a great person and for taking the time to talk to me.